Of Feed Media Group's Inside Curation series. We do it every other Wednesday at around 1 o'clock Pacific time. We dig into the arts of curation. And today, very excited, we're going to take a deep dive into the arts of the music festival. Now, if you're not super familiar with who we are at Feed Media Group, we're a B2B music service that powers the music for fit tech, fitness apps, wellness apps, music for gaming, digital retail, any business that needs contemporary music to sort of enhance the experience, enhance the brand. That is what we do. My name is Mike Savage. I am one of the music curators at Feed. I'm sitting in today for our normal host, Melissa Clark. I'm joined by our my curation compadre, Stens, senior curator and writer at Feed Media Group. And listen, I'm just going to throw it over to you, Stens, because you have a long history with our special guest today, and I'll let you do the introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're so thrilled to have Dawson Ludwig with us today. I'll attempt, Dawson, to give you a succinct intro. It's tough because you've done a lot, but in a nutshell, you've spent the past 13 years. He's spent the past 13 years, excuse me. I don't need to tell you about yourself. At Noise Pop Industries, the iconic San Francisco music presenter. And we had the chance to briefly serve. I was a colleague of yours briefly, and you were there for a long time, came up in the ranks, quickly ascended into general manager first, of actually running the day-to-day operation. And then into more recently managing partner. For those that are not aware of Noise Pop Industries, you're missing out. They do the famous and deservedly celebrated Noise Pop annual festival of amazing bands predominantly. And they also, for a good 10, 11 years, co-presented the Treasure Island Music Festival with Another Planet Entertainment. So those are just the tip of the iceberg for Noise Pop Industries, but concurrently, Dawson has spent the past 3 years as the director of music and events at the phone-free focused company Yondr, which is also doing some really amazing and interesting work in the music space. I want to just say, and thinking about what it is that you do, Dawson, and reflecting a little bit on what you did early in your career and what you're doing now, is it seems to me that your sweet spot and what you've really excelled at, both at Noise Pop and Yondr, is you connect bands and the fans, as kind of a mission statement. And, bands is a little bit reductive because Yondr does so much stand-up comedy and other artists. But, I think that connectivity point is, and between that and your passion and knowledge of music seems to be your sweet spot. I want to start, Dawson. We do want to hear from you. I want to start by talking about your ears. So I heard you describe your first music job as an ASCAP narc in New York City, which was a wonderfully colorful description of what I would consider to be, in some respects, a dream job, in other respects, less so. Sure. At Feed Media Group, we talk frequently about business music licensing. What you were doing is directly related to business music licensing. Tell us a little bit about that foray that you had that got you into the music business.
Yeah, sure. So I'm dating myself here, but I was in New York City prior to the smartphone. I was a wee lad out of college and needed a job. And I saw a listing for ASCAP was looking for people to go into bars and restaurants that play music that are not currently licensed with ASCAP. And they're looking for people to basically sit there and covertly drink for 4 hours on their dime. So it's a great gig, and jot down all the music that they played. And I would report it back to ASCAP, and they would turn that into a fancy legal letter that would scare the pants off of the bar and try to coerce them into getting the proper licenses.
Dawson, did you ever have to, while you're doing that, did they ever make that responsibility yours, where you'd have to be there in person saying, hey, I'm from ASCAP?
Oh, no. Luckily, no. Like, I think I would have had to have taken like de-escalation classes. Right. Like, that's a whole other subset. I was specifically there because I had a very vast knowledge of music, and it was, it was pre, like cell phone age. So, there was no Shazam. So you just had to sort of sit there and sort of like parse out like, okay, what Neil Young song was that? Or, oftentimes I'd have to very covertly, like, every once in a while I'd be like, I went to a reggae bar, and reggae is not my like, main,
Sure.
I don't live in that world as much. I know quite a bit, but there was some deep cuts that I had to sort of like go like, I love this song. What do you know who this is? And after the fourth or fifth ask, I was like, okay, I got to play it cool. I can't ask every single person what song this is.
You were going deep cover before Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. About the same time as Dr.
Yeah.
Dre and Snoop Dogg, you went deep cover.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, that is just incredible. And I think as far as pedigree and currency goes for anybody in the music industry, as a professional music curator, the world of music is so massively vast. The fact that you had that fresh out of college is pretty impressive. So you've got a great pair of ears, but I guess you realized, that wasn't maybe the right side of the table for you to be working on. And then, I know you had a few other very interesting stints between that and Noise Pop, but bringing us a little bit more up to the present, tell us a little bit about your experience with Noise Pop Industries, and especially for those that don't understand, what does a festival organizer like that company do? What's the process of putting together a festival? We're specifically interested in the curatorial dimension here, but that's obviously just one dimension of it. So what goes on into that whole experience?
Sure. Yeah. So Noise Pop is it's an independent Bay Area promoter. They've really special. It's been around for, we're coming up on 28 years. The bread and butter of their audience is, well, it's evolved quite a bit, but initially it started off with like, sort of underground college rock, like Husker Du, Agent Orange, or not Agent Orange, but Oranger, a lot of bands that are sort of like, record store nerd bands. And then,
but just to be clear, classic acts, like, the type of, the musicians you're naming and many others you haven't named are ones that pretty much anyone sitting in my chair would start to drool and say, damn, that was a good pick,
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very much, each festival has an identity, and for a long time, Noise Pop was, the identity was early adapters. So we were the first to book Bright Eyes, the first to book the White Stripes, the first to book Grimes, the first to book the National on the West Coast, I should say. So as the sort of banner of indie music grew, which is what we really started under, our genres became much more vast to where, like, now we're booking Vince Staples, and it was a little bit of a stretch, but we booked Carly Rae Jepsen a few years ago. But she definitely represents a certain like indie aesthetic, which I think I appreciate. But anyway, so the Noise Pop brand has sort of like blossomed, and I guess from what we're doing from a curation point of view is really trying to, it's an extension of marketing, which is to understand our audience as much as possible and understand exactly what they're trying to get at. So, we have a very deep relationship with Pitchfork and Stereo Gum and the Billboard Hot 100. Like, those are the things that inform what we feel like our audience is going to react to. And then ultimately, it's just relying on our ears and what we like personally, and hoping that it still aligns with what our fans do. And I will say, we are, in some ways, I am aging myself out of what our fans are into. And so we have a new crop of young talent buyers that are much more on the pulse than I am, I should say.
That's an interesting point that you're making, because I speak to a lot of radio programmers, just because I'm friends with lots of them, and they're at that point now too, where sort of like as maybe like an alternative radio station. Mm-hmm. You can kind of go one of two ways, which is like, one, you can program the music for the audience that you have had and sort of grow old with them and continue to play the music that they loved growing up, or you pick that sort of target demographic, the number. Okay, our target is 18 to 34-year-olds.
Yeah.
And you always program to those people, no matter, like, as people age past it, you still program towards that age group. So is there any sort of correlation there in terms of curating for a music festival? Do you say, okay, our festival goers are this age, so we need to program for this?
Yeah, it's like that Matthew McConaughey line in Dazed and Confused. Like, I get older, but they stay the same age.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And in some ways we are. And, you know, what's interesting about that is it's a constantly moving target, which is to say, like, for instance, we were marketing ourselves in the 90s towards, like, you know, college rock bands audiences. And now the college audiences are, you know, can range anywhere from ambient music down to like hyper pop, and we need to be aware of that and go into all of these little subcultures. So, you know, our goal is to stay in that. I mean, we have held on to an older demographic that's held on with us, like the people that grew up with White Stripes and Husker Du, but our bread is buttered by youth culture, and we are, you know, essentially invested in making sure that we're tracking that and catering to it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I mean, I think what you described a little bit back of in a sense, keeping your ear really close to the ground, which I think noise pop has, you know, if you were to distill the value propositions of that festival to one thing, it's just credibility, right? Or being cutting edge, like keeping your ears so close to the ground, you know, music discovery, figuring out the sources that work for you, whether it's Pitchfork, Stereo Gum, or just having young people that have more time to really close to it, and then matchmaking that externally is something that we're constantly doing in our own way as curators. Now, when you deal with a little bit more of a complex operation, which I know is not continuing with noise pop, but we're always hoping it might come back in some way, shape, or form. But when you were working with, you know, this other, I think, Bay Area juggernaut, beloved company, Another Planet Entertainment, when you were co-curating that Treasure Island Music Festival, can you tell me a little bit more about what that looked like? Maybe even including this very cool thing with the 2 days with these different themes. Like, how did you go about all of that work?
Yeah, so Treasure Island Music Festival was like a 20,000 festival in the middle of the Bay Area. And it was 2 days, and it was uniquely divided by genres. So Saturday was a electronic and hip hop day, and then Saturday was a rock day. And we decided to divide that up just simply because we wanted a point of view, and we wanted to cater to two different audiences, but also mainly focus on the audience that split the middle and were interested in both days. Because if you were a hip hop fan and you were a rock fan, then this festival was, I mean, just a dream come true for you. As well as you had more buy-in from the audience. If you had an audience filled with pure rock fans, then Sunday was just electric. And same goes for, hip hop and electronic. A really interesting demographic change is like looking out at the crowd. Like basically Saturday was an 18 to 24-year-old day, and Sunday was a 25 to 40-year-old day. And, you know, one side was flannels and beer, and the other side was, well, other substances.
Which day? Yeah, I was going to ask you, which day sold more beer?
Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday.
Nice.
I mean, I was proudly, and before I even knew you, or even knew, in a sense, I was new to the Bay Area and noise pop and things of that nature. I was one of the proud people in the middle of that Venn diagram that was like musically agnostic, wanted to be there. Like, I think with the exception of one night when it got so damn cold that I had to bolt early because it got frigid out there. Like, I don't think I missed a day for like 8 years. So, you know, props to you on that. And the artists that you brought to the city, it was wonderfully eclectic, and I think it had a clear curatorial point of view that was really unique and cool, of doing, one thing one day, another thing another day. I don't even know that I've seen that anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't think
That
so.
experience. Yeah, what's that?
I was gonna say I don't think anybody else has sort of followed that lead.
It was cool. It was cool. Do you have any? I mean, I want to get into Yondr a little bit because it's really fascinating what you're doing now. But before I do that, just kind of a general question out to you as a music lover, as a fan, as a participant in all this, because you also get to vicariously experience a lot of it. Any standouts, that you're really like, damn, that was from either Treasure Island and or Noise Pop, a couple standouts, or even maybe a time when an artist that you kind of brought to the forefront as a company blew up and you think, I know you're a really modest guy, but like we definitely had a hand in that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of quite a few things. I mean, Noise Pop is deeply tied to Death Cab for Cutie. We were the first to bring them up, and in fact, one of my partners at Noise Pop, who booked Death Cab for Cutie back in the early 2000s, late 90s, went on to manage them and is their longtime manager now. We played a really big part in the garage rock sort of scene of San Francisco with the OCs and Ty Segall and that world. The freak folk movement with Joanna Newsom and Devendra Banhart, that was, very much sort of spawned by Noise Pop. There's been a lot of really cool things that we've been part of, which is fun, which again goes back to what you were saying, Eric, of like, we're just a facilitator of connecting fans and bands and watching it grow.
So now tell us a little bit, it's not strictly in the curation space, but it's, I think, really, really important to people. Live music's returning. We're jumping out of our skins over here as curators. We can't wait to safely get back to concerts. Now, before the pandemic, I think Yondr was in some sense a radical notion. And now I don't know if it's going to be seen as more radical or more like this is smart. Tell us a little bit about your company for those that don't know. Sure. I've experienced it and I loved the experience of it.
I have as well down here in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So Yondr is we create phone-free spaces very generally. That ranges from classrooms to courtrooms into what I specialize in, which is concerts and performances. So the idea is you walk into a space, our staff hands the guest a lockable pouch. They put the phone in the pouch, it locks, and the guest gets it back. So the idea is the patron has their phone on them, they just can't access it. And so what you have at the end result is a room full of people who are either angrily or happily have no access to their phones, yet their phone is on them. I will say, for me, this is a very personal sort of decision, but I find the experience between a performer and the crowd to be a very, very delicate thing that can vanish in a minute. It could be like, a dump truck outside is like just happens to make a loud sound at your favorite part, or everything goes quiet and there's feedback. If things don't go right, then you can feel an audience sort of start to lose and loses attention, and it sort of disappears into the ether. And I personally really do not like the part that phones play in that distraction. So for me, a phone-free show is just amazing. Like, you get to another spiritual level. We work with a lot of artists, a lot of comedians who understand that. But Jack White uses us a lot, and Madonna uses us, and for various reasons. But I mean, the one byproduct of it is that you have just an incredible electricity that's going back and forth between the performer and the audience.
And I mean, the audience, they know what they're getting themselves into when they buy the tickets. So it's not it's a shock. And I think that everybody is better for it. I think I saw Dave Chappelle do a show at the Hotel Cafe.
Oh, cool.
And it was drop it in, pick it up. Yeah. Check your messages at the end of the set. you know.
Yeah. It's such a fascinating social experiment. Like I've been to a lot of shows and seen people sort of go in, and you see them initially as they put their phone in a pouch and realize maybe they weren't prepared for it. They're like, what is happening? And then you can kind of watch them, and like their shoulders start to relax after about 10 minutes. They realize that if they need to, they can go outside and text. But also, like, you know, life will go on for the 45 minutes to an hour that you don't have access to your phone, and you can enjoy it.
Well, I mean, I love it. So, I mean, personal preferences aside, where I would say yours and mine are aligned, and probably not coincidentally, I think all three of our ages are probably around the same. So
Yeah.
we grew up, we know what it was like to go meet someone and know if you didn't specify this Starbucks versus that Starbucks, you were SOL. You weren't going to meet.
Right. That's right.
So, you know, but personal preferences aside, you would certainly be in a position, having programmed and, you know, presented so many artists, to have experienced that electricity that happens. So, you know, here's hoping that Yondr will take off and more artists will avail. It was, you know, it could not have been easier to experience it as a patron. It happened so fast. Shifting gears between noise pop, where now you have a much more, you know, high level bird's eye view role. I know you're meeting with the group maybe once a week to just kind of keep them on target and to impart your, you know, really seasoned expertise. But between that and your more on the ground work at Yondr, anything you can share with us, any upcoming things you can allude to as far as, you know, upcoming festivals or events or anything new that you can tip the hat a bit to our viewers?
Yeah, so Noise Pop is working currently on a new festival. We're trying to find the right space in the Bay Area, and you know, we can't go too deep into it, but we're trying to essentially recreate a lot of what Treasure Island was, which is, you know, for a festival to have a perspective again. I will say that that's something that we feel very strongly about, that is missing in the festival ecosystem. A lot of festivals, which are storied and have wonderful reputations and have contributed a lot to music, have settled into a very passive curatorial stance, and we are very eager to inject a little bit of human curation in that process.
Getting back to curation as opposed to the sort of algorithmic
Crowdsourcing, you know, or no,
Yeah.
that's fabulous, because I mean, even as spectators, even as attendees, this homogenization of music festivals, I mean, there was pre-pandemic, there was, you know, a big influx of more and more festivals, which in some respects you think more is better, right? But then you could see visibly the homogenization happening even with famous festivals. We talked about this on our pre-call of Coachella and Bumbershoot. You're like, you know, not Bumbershoot, excuse me, the one in Memphis. Just fell out of my head.
Oh, Big Ears?
Bonnaroo? You think of Bonnaroo?
Bonnaroo, excuse me, Bonnaroo. Those had a very clear curatorial point of view, but you started seeing like The Weeknd at these 6, you know, festivals this summer, and you started seeing Arctic Monkeys at these 6 festivals. So in terms of that kind of tidal change towards more homogenization, are we going to ever get back? Where do you think we're at? Do you have any predictions on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is like, I also like Randy's note about shots fired at Outside Lands. All respect to Outside Lands. They're a wonderful curation company,
Yes.
Their festival. But I think a lot of larger festivals are at the whim of, not to sound crazy, but the capitalistic sort of cycle that music is in now, which is that festivals got so big that they are now dictating when music releases are coming out, because bands realize that they can play hopscotch on the major festivals and rake in a lot of money. But the problem with that is, you look at the Lollapalooza lineup, you look at the Bonnaroo lineup, the Coachella lineup, the Outside Lands lineup, and they all kind of more or less look the same. Yeah. And I don't know if they have a lot of options outside of, essentially following this cycle that is this current ecosystem that we're in, which is why it'd be really interesting for a smaller festival, talking like 10,000 cap and below, to come along and sort of shake that up and say, like, look, we're not going to book something that is dictated by Spotify releases or album releases. We're going to dig up some old bands that want to reunite. We're going to dig up some new artists that you haven't really heard of yet, and see how that sort of grows organically.
I love that. Yeah, the rise, the re-rise of the sort of 10,000 plus curated festivals. I look forward to that because, yeah, like you said, I think that's a lot of the bigger ones are taking that sort of path of least resistance. Say, okay, well, these artists are doing that one and that one. I guess we'll do them. We'll have them here too. Maybe throw in a couple of little local flavors, but other than that, it's the same, in so many cities. So
yeah,
I look forward to the rise.
Yeah, and I mean, as a reminder, like Coachella started off with I think it was 20,000 people. Like,
sure.
I think all of these festivals start off with the good intentions of let's just be music nerds that bring in the bands that we like. And obviously there's still that element, but there's just too much money being made now to ignore the fact that, Metallica is available. And even though they've played this 4 times, let's book them.
Right. Well, you would have visibility and perspective on that we don't have as B2B music curators. I mean, you're out there in the live space. And so thanks for sharing your perspective with us on that. And it's always a fan of what you're doing, Dawson. In closing, do you have any, for anyone who's viewing this that maybe has aspirations to have a curatorial role, whether it's I am a curator or I am a part of a company like Noise Pop Industries, where curation is clearly for any festival presenter that's part of it. Any general tips for how you can, break in and pull a Dawson Ludwig, where you're sitting here as an industry heavy at a relatively young age?
Other than, this sort of Woody Allen quote of just show up, make sure you like what you're doing, because you're going to have to compete with, other people who are just as excited about this space as you, but, just show up and be helpful. I mean, things sort of get thrust onto you if you become a problem solver for other people.
Love it. Well, keep solving those problems, Dawson. We'll be cheering from the sidelines, and I'll be paying close attention, especially to both of your companies, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
We should just maybe plug Yondr's website too, because there could be some folks interested in bringing in a phone-free experience. So it's overyondr.com.
Yep, overyondr.com, and there's no E in between the at the end of Yondr.
Yeah, great. And everyone else, be sure to visit feedmediagroup.com to learn some more about how businesses can create some engaging experiences with music. And Stens, I think we're all back, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. Is that correct?
2 weeks from now, we'll be back. We have a high bar set now, but we'll hope to continue on this trajectory with our the guest series that we're in the middle of. Thank you so much, Dawson.
Thanks, Dawson.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.